Hey guys, Saf here, and today we're in New World and we're going to take a look at the gem system that is available to players as they start progressing through the game. Now early on you're going to get a lot of armor and weapons that are uncommon or common, and they don't have the ability to have a gems. However, once you start getting to level 30 plus, you're going to start seeing a lot more armor where there's empty gem slots, and you'll be able to craft these if you're able to get enough gear score and enough quality. Now, early on, it's quite confusing as to what gems you should pick and what you should use. So in this video, we're going to cover how it works, what you should pick, and what are the benefits and sort of the ways you should use this. So let's get started. So early on, what you're going to want to do is just gather and store as many of the gems as you can. And then you're going to want to work on getting your stone cutting profession, your stone cutting trade skill up as high as you possibly can. As you get more levels, you will get more recipes and you'll get better quality gems. So right now in the game, there's a number of different options. Now every gem will have two effects. It'll have a weapon effect and it'll have an armor effect. And that is in the order you see it on here. So a malachite, for example, a basic tier 2 cut malachite will, if slotted into a weapon, give you a damage boost for any crowd controlled enemies. And if slotted into an armor, will give you an elemental and physical damage absorption, effectively a damage reduction. Obviously, the higher the quality tier, the higher the benefits that you will get. But the type that you get, the gem at tier 2 for a malachite will give you the same type of effect, it's just going to give you more of it at a higher tier. So some gems to look at here which are very important. Carnelian Gems are essentially a tanking gem. If you want to be the tank in New World, you need to have a Carnelian Gem in your weapon. And what this does is it turns on taunts within your skills. So for example, if we look at weapons such as the sword and shield, and we look at one of these abilities here, the shield bash ability. So when you use that ability, if your weapon has a Carnelian Gem, it activates the second component, which forces the enemies to hit you. So it does a 6-second taunt. Without that, it will just do its primary effect. So there are other types of gems in here as well. There is conversion gems, essentially. So if we look at an aquamarine, what an aquamarine gem will do when it's slotted into a weapon is it will convert 20% of the base damage to ice, and then it will scale that particular damage off of intelligence or the weapon stat, whichever is highest. So in my example here, now I've got a rapier and fire staff. Now normally the rapier will scale from dexterity, but when I talk about the base value, we can see on this weapon here we've got thrust damage and fire damage. Now I've slotted an ignited gem, I think that's a ruby gem, which means that 30% of the thrust damage that I originally had has been converted to fire, and that fire damage is going to now scale from my intelligence stat or my base weapon damage, whichever's higher. Now I've then decided as part of my build to put all my points in intelligence, which means this now is greater than the thrust value. So instead of the fire scaling from dexterity or the thrust value, it's now going to scale off the intelligence, which is far more effective. So this allows me, instead of having a sort of a 50-50 damage split from having a weapon that does fire and a weapon that does thrust damage, to now have it more of a 75-25. They're the conversion gems, and there is one for every type. You've got one that, like a sapphire, will convert it to arcane, aquamarine will convert it to frost, amber will convert it to nature. So these decisions you will make depending on what other weapon you've got. And then the last ones you've got are typically pure damage. So we've got diamonds here, which will give you a 6% damage while at full health, or 6% outgoing healing. That's pretty good if you're staying away from the fight, specifically in PvE, but you might find that pretty weak in PvP. And then you've also got things like onyx, which is designed as a one-hit, one-shot, would be great for a musket, but again, PvP, they need to be at full HP. And so you can really see, like with the weapons here, that you can tweak your builds quite a lot to find a balance in your stats and attributes. Now in terms of armor, every single one of these will give you some form of damage absorption. It's always a defensive component. For a Carnelian Gem, this will generate less threat, so if you're healing, it makes sense that you should prioritize Carnelian. If you're a tank, then obviously you can choose to get some damage absorption depending on the content you're going to face. So if you're facing a specific expedition that has primarily arcane damage, then obviously you can find and build yourself out an armor set that has heavy arcane absorption to make yourself tankier. This will probably lead to a lot of armor stacking, in the sense that you might have a vault full of different armor types for different expeditions as you get towards the end game. Now, so how do we actually acquire these opals and these different gems? They primarily come from silver, gold, and higher tier mining. So you won't find many of these in iron ore, but you will definitely start seeing them come at silver, especially as you gain higher levels and you increase your harvesting luck and your mining luck, which I'll break down in a second. And specifically, as you start getting to gold, platinum, you'll start getting substantial amounts. You can also get gems from chests as you gather around the world and different areas, different content. You can fish and get a treasure chest, that will give you some gems as well. Now, once you collect some flawed gems, they need to be brought to a stone cutting table and they need to be refined. Once you have got enough of those, you can start upgrading them to different things. So for example, if I wanted to make a Carnelian gem, I can bring 3 flawed Carnelian gems and bring a fire wisp. These fire wisps I'll cover in a second. So you can bring a Carnelian gem through to the stone cutting table here. You've got 3 flawed. Use a fire wisp, which you can craft at an arcana table, and then use a solvent of sorts, which can either be a tier 3 or a tier 4 solvent, and that will then give you a Carnelian, and then you can use that Carnelian to make a higher quality. As you get higher stone cutting, you'll get access to more of these conversions. So once I get to 100 stone cutting, I'll be able to make tier 4s by bringing 4 tier 3s. So you can see there's that tiered system. Tier 1s can be converted to tier 2, tier 2 can be converted to tier 3, but obviously if you acquire the tier 4s and 5s through playing endgame and mining rocks, then that will obviously help you. Now you get these essences from mining and harvesting the alchemy stones and also the magical plants. And what you will receive then is you will get some of these low tier motes and also a chance to get higher tier. And you can do the same thing as you've just done in the stone cutting. You can bring this to an arcana table and you'll be able to convert them up into the higher tiers of those motes. So we're just going to run over here now. Okay, so when we get over here, we can see we've got wisps. And again, arcana will need to be upgraded to get access to the higher tiers of wisps. So there is a lot of crafts which work together that you can't just ignore one, but of course you can go to the marketplace and buy, the trading post and buy these in if you need them. So gems are really powerful for actually min-maxing your build and really making a difference, and also for finding niche ways to maximize your damage output when normally you would have to make some sacrifices. So I hope you found that guide helpful. We'll probably follow this up with a more specific end game builds as we go through the game and as we start playing it ourselves. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and check us out in the next video. Thanks very much.